paper reports that two of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers.
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Nick Bryant podcast. Today, my guest is mind control survivor, Wendy Hoffman. Wendy has published 4 memoirs: The Enslaved Queen, White Witch in a Black Robe, A Brain of My Own, and After Amnesia. She also wrote From the Trenches with Dr. Alison Miller. She has had one book published. She has had one book of poetry published called Forceps, and a second book of poetry called Belonging will be published this fall. Wendy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well enough. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good myself.
Good.
You really get into the machinations of mind control, the nuances of it. And this is a quote from your book, After Amnesia. Mind control is at least as organized as libraries. The programmers divide victims' brains into sections, each one containing possibly multitudes of molecules and personalities. The brain's world is divided into front and a secret behind, which holds knowledge of and participation in evil. The fronts do not know about the inner vibration. They have to pretend to be a normal person in regular life. What a stressful, hypocritical job they have been given. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yes. I'm talking about generational, satanic, criminal mind control. That is my topic. And I'll be talking mostly about what happened to me. I have talked and even worked with other survivors, but I want to talk about what I know the best. And other survivors have read what I wrote or saw some presentations, and they said that the details may be different, but the main structure is similar. And I know that criminal perpetrators of mind control, they stick with what works. Now, there are always innovations going on because they want to steal people's brains more efficiently, using less of their perpetrators for one person, and to make as much money out of it as they can. So things are changing and innovations are being made, but I think a lot of the basic structure, if it works, has been maintained. So,
and in your book, you write, oh, go ahead, sorry.
They take innocent children and they steal their brains and rearrange their brains. Some of us are taken as fetuses and some of us are taken as newborns. But their goal is to program us, to make us robots, mannequins, automatons, however you want to see it or call it. And then they divide the brain into what you need to look like a nice enough normal person, and what the back of the brain or the rest of the brain can be used to create personalities who have a purpose and come out when called and don't know anything about the front part, and the front part doesn't know anything about the back part. And in the back part, they not only create multitudes of personalities or parts to do what they want them to do, but they also create many sections so that there are different groups warring for your brain and for your being.
Now,
And-
when you say they,
Yes,
who do you mean?
I'm talking about mind control programmers.
Okay.
Get their instructions from leaders. The programmers, even though many of them may be conscious, and we could talk about conscious if you'd like, they're still following orders. And they're not the ones who devise what to do. They are technicians, essentially.
And you talk about this going back to Joseph Mengele and his experiments in the camps in Eastern Europe.
Well, he did a lot of damage, but there was a great deal going on simultaneously and beforehand. All over the world, people were experimenting on how to create amnesia in people so that they can have parts that are called out, have no memory of what's going on, but perform whatever they were programmed to perform. He wasn't the only one, but he had this great advantage of not really having to work on the front parts. He, what he did was he returned victims to the camps or to the bunks or wherever he returned them to. And he didn't have to make them look normal and innocent. He may have worked on the division between front and back, but it wasn't so important because he had nobody checking up on him. He could do whatever he wanted to do. And he did do a lot to create better mind control, but he wasn't the only one. It was already going on all over the world with master programmers.
With Mengele, it's not really documented that he came here with Operation Paperclip. We brought a bunch of Nazis here. Nazi war criminals like Werner von Braun and Erich Traub. But Mengele isn't listed as a paperclip, as being part of Paperclip. But there have been other mind control survivors that have said that that definitely say that Mengele was part of their programming.
Oh, yes. And governments brought him in, paid him. Parents sold their children to him to be experimented on. And he was given places to do this work all over the world. What happened to me was primarily at Montauk Point on Long Island, but all over the United States and other countries, he went around programming children and continuing experiments. When he was here, he was particularly interested in how to give diseases to children. And that was one of his innovations.
You're right. When a part of the brain is isolated and given a job, it stays at the age of the body at the time. It does not grow and mature, no matter how old the body becomes. And could you tell us about that?
Well, your people like myself are programmed at different ages. And as I said before, it could even be a newborn child. Actually, they do a great deal with newborns. And they're given a place in the brain. They're given triggers when they want to be brought out. They're given commands on what they want to do. For example, if they want to create a mule in an adolescent or a young adult, they will separate that part and teach them all sorts of hand signals and foot signals and visuals to come out and stay out and do their job, which is to transport information from one place to another.
And the way that you describe the programmers, they really break you down. You write that to render victims ripe for mind control, programmers destroy self-esteem. That is universal. For example, to me, they said, you are dark and ugly. Your mother wishes you weren't born. You'll never be allowed to be in the sun.
I think what survivors have to really focus on is this issue that you brought up, Nick, about self-esteem. You can't really mind control a person if that person is intact and feels good about him or herself and has support. So they have to strip all of that away. And they do that very early in life by telling people horrible things about themselves, which, children believe what they're told. And one of the most important things they do is break the bond between the mother and the child. Now, some people have mothers who wanted really to keep that bond, but they weren't allowed to. Their child probably might have been murdered right in front of them if they had. And they can't have mind control victims who are bonded to a mother.